Investigators probing last month's Air India crash are now focusing on the flight's senior pilot. Black box recordings suggest the captain may have turned off the two fuel switches to both engines shortly after takeoff, according to early assessments of the investigation. The first officer questioned the move and appeared panicked. The pilot, the captain, remained calm.
Investigation into the tragic crash of Air India flight AI-171 from Ahmedabad to London's Gatwick is now focusing on the role of the pilot after cockpit recordings suggested the captain may have turned off the fuel switches just after takeoff. The crash, which occurred on 12th June, claimed over 260 lives.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Breaking news, the pilot cut the flow of fuel to the Air India plane that crashed. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. New details in the probe of last month's Air India crash are shifting the focus to the senior pilot, the captain, in the cockpit. According to the Wall Street Journal, a black box recording of dialogue between the flight's two pilots indicates it was the captain who turned off the switches that controlled fuel flowing to the plane's two engines. That's according to people familiar with American officials' early assessment of evidence uncovered in the crash investigation. You just heard at the beginning of that clip that the co-pilot sounded panicked, whereas the captain, denying that he did anything, sounded calm, which would be unusual in that situation. Now, given the older pilot's backstory, specifically his psychological and medical background of late, which this channel reported on, it made sense that the co-pilot queried the captain. And this is now being confirmed that the captain did indeed turn off those switches. The junior pilot was actually flying at the time, and it was the junior pilot who asked, "Did you turn off those switches?" It is not clear who turned them back on, but if I'd had to guess, it was perhaps the junior pilot. According to the Wall Street Journal, contents of the flight's cockpit voice recorders have been tightly held by Indian authorities and seen as key to helping fill out the sequence of events in the flight's final moments. The Wall Street Journal seems to be a little cagey about how they've been able to confirm this sensitive information, but the sources they cite may be the woman mentioned lower down in the exclusive. Jennifer Homendy, chairwoman of the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, has sought to listen to the recording herself, according to people familiar with the matter. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. So, did Jennifer Homendy listen to it? An NTSB spokesman said that Homendy has been fully briefed on all aspects of the Air India investigation, including the cockpit voice recording and details from the flight data recorder. Homendy said her goal in working with Indian authorities was to quickly determine whether the crash presented any immediate safety concerns to the travelling public. Now, it does seem as if there's been growing alarm, even panic, that has been brewing in the airline industry, particularly in the USA, and that authorities have been scrambling. They've wanted to clear up the confusion as speedily as possible. According to the Wall Street Journal, details in the preliminary report also suggest it was the captain who turned off the switches, according to people familiar with the matter, also US pilots and safety experts tracking the probe. The report didn't say whether turning off the switches might have been accidental or deliberate. And this is really the crux of the matter. I mean, one has the sense that the authorities know more than what they're saying, right? As the pilot actively flying, Clive Kunda was the co-pilot, he likely would have had his hands full pulling back on the Dreamliner's controls, according to the Wall Street Journal, certainly at that stage of the flight. And the US pilots who have read the Indian authorities report, this is their assessment. Sabharwal, as the pilot monitoring, would have been more likely to have had his hands free as he oversaw the operation. Well, that has been the contention of this channel since the beginning. It's not clear to me if the authorities have made this inference, I know I made it, or whether the audio definitively confirms who is asking what question and who is answering. I do wonder whether that recording will be made public, also as a matter of some urgency. According to the Wall Street Journal, the switches were moved in succession, 1 second apart, according to the report. Then about 10 seconds later, both switches were turned back on. This alone suggests the pilot's intentions were at cross purposes in the cockpit. The one wanted to fly the plane and get it into the air, as you would expect. The other, for reasons currently unknown, possibly didn't. According to the Wall Street Journal, the plane crashed near the Ahmedabad airport, killing all but one of the 242 on board. That alone was also quite extraordinary. According to the Wall Street Journal, the preliminary details have fueled the belief among U.S. officials, this is important, that criminal authorities should review the matter. This would be the case if the crash had occurred on American soil. Now, in America, accident investigators historically have involved agencies such as the FBI if they believe a potential crime occurred rather than a safety mishap. These are the words being used in this article. Criminal authorities, a potential crime has occurred here. And of course, this is a true crime channel. This is why we've covered this. I have heard one expert saying early on that investigators with no aviation experience have been assigned in India, which suggests to me at least the possibility that it is being regarded as a potentially criminal matter. Back to the Wall Street Journal. The Indian authorities' preliminary report didn't reach any conclusions about what led to the crash or why. That's such a big question. Why were the fuel switches turned off if they were turned off? The report didn't rule out possible design flaws, malfunctions, or maintenance issues. Well, we seem to be at this point now where that has been definitively ruled out. But it did note the involvement of aviation medicine and psychology experts in the investigation. And mark my words, that is what I predict, or where I predict this investigation is going to go to, psychology. Obviously, if the switches were turned off deliberately, we are dealing with a crime, the worst crime of all, which is mass murder. If that is the case, what is the motive? What is the psychological mechanism at work here? Well, we'll be dealing with that in the next episode. I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.